Hello everyone, hope you are doing well today. Okay, let me send information about the webinar. Okay, so you came here today to listen about the isolated pawn. Okay, first thing, I'm just going to tell you what isolated pawn is, and I'm just going to tell you couple basic principles that you can use when you fight against the isolated pawn and when you play with the isolated pawn. Then I'm just going to analyze couple games that I prepared that are going to show you how really good players played with and against the isolated pawn. Let me just take one thing. Okay, I just need to send information about the chat, about the stream. Okay, and okay, so let's start. Okay, so what isolated pawn is? First of all, isolated pawn is in this position. You can see the board in this position. Isolated pawn is of course the d4 pawn. Pawn that is kind of alone. You can see that on the C and on the E file there is no white pawn in that position. This is why we call this pawn isolated. If for example that pawn would be here, now you can see that isolated pawn is the A2 pawn, right? But of course the isolated pawn is the weakest when it's on the semi-open file, because here for example black can let's say double rooks and attack it there, right? But if let's say pawn is here, it's not so easy to attack it, right? So this is first thing. Then so this is the isolated pawn. Then what you just need to know when you play with an isolated pawn, there are two basic strategies that you can use. First one is try to push it forward. If you can push it forward, that pawn can make some confusion and you can get very active pieces. Moreover, you can exchange pawn, because isolated pawn, you just need to remember that this is still weakness, right? But if you can push it forward, this is first strategy, to push it forward. And second one is just to try to organize some attack with your minor pieces, especially minor pieces. For example, with your you can set up knight at the e5, you can use your bishops and you can create attack to the king, right? You can see that e5 square is supported by a pawn. You can also use another bishop, you can bring knight. So second strategy is to use try to create some attack with your minor pieces. Okay, so this is what you're supposed to, two basic strategies when you play with an isolated pawn. We will talk about it more, right? But if you fight against the isolated pawn, the most important thing is to stop it from moving forward. So you have to set up the piece, for example, at the d5 in front of the pawn, and the piece in front of the isolated pawn is called blockator. And the best blockator, of course, is the knight, because there is no pawn. White hasn't got pawn here that can attack the knight, so white can attack it only with a minor piece, but of course knight is not afraid of that. And knight, second thing why knight is so good, because knight can attack right from behind that isolated pawn. So this is the best blockator. And of course the worst blockator is queen, because if white wants to remove that queen from that place, it's enough to attack it with anything, right? With like let's say rook, bishop, or the knight. Okay, so first thing, black's supposed to set up knight would be the best, but blockator in front of the pawn. And second thing is that black's supposed to exchange especially minor pieces, because take a look, if black can white's plan, side, the side who has got the isolated pawn is going to create the attack with minor pieces. So of course logical conclusion is that another side is trying to exchange it. Because if you can get into the position, let's set random position with major pieces. Okay, too many rooks. Okay. Let's say something like that. Usually positions with major pieces only are much better for the side who plays against the isolated pawn. Because take a look, black attacks it 1, 2, 3 times. It is defended 1, 2, 3 times also, right? But black can take advantage of that, and black can play this pawn break e5 in that position. And as you can see, pawn at the d4 is pinned, and in the next move black has got now 4 attackers, so black is just going to take this pawn, right? So this is the reason why black, the side without the isolated pawn, is supposed to exchange especially minor pieces, because usually positions with major pieces are better for them. So those are like basic couple basic plans. So now let's go and to analyze some games. We will go, of course, through the whole game. Let's start maybe with the first game. The first game is actually a game that I have played a couple years ago. Okay, so let's have a start. I played this game with black. So knight f3, d5. Okay, c4, e6, d4, c5. You can see that that opening is called the Tarrasch Defense. If you want to, you can watch the whole series, my series for chess.com about it. So yeah, this is just one of the openings that black will have the isolated pawn. For example, another common opening that there is an isolated pawn is, for example, Panov's attack in the Caro-Kann or Queen's Gambit Accepted. There are several openings that leads into the position with the isolated pawn. Okay, pawn takes, g3. Okay, black plays knight c6. Yeah, we will not talk about openings here, so I will just move faster. D captures c5, and you can see that this is the moment that black has got the isolated pawn in the center. Bishop captures c5, queen c2. Now I have to decide whether move my bishop back to e7 or move it back to b6. I decided to keep that bishop at b6 because one of the plans that I mentioned before is create some attack with minor pieces. So I want to keep my bishop in an active position, pointing not only to the white's king, but also it supports any d4 move, right? So another strategy, push pawn forward. Okay, knight goes to c3, castling. Bishop g5. His knight attacks my pawn. That bishop also attacks my isolated pawn, maybe not in a direct way, but is attacking the defender. Okay, so I have to defend it. Bishop e6, knight a4. I think that this is a nice idea because he's trying to exchange my very powerful bishop in this position. Okay, I played h6, knight captures b6, a captures b6, bishop captures f6, queen captures f6. You can see, I would say that that was a right decision for my opponent because he's supposed to exchange minor pieces. Okay, queen d2. And now take a look in this position. What might be a good idea for black? You can see that white is going probably to move in the next move, bring the rook, and maybe try to, definitely try to block my isolated pawn. So the only right decision is push it forward. And take a look. That pawn not only gives more space for black in the center. Now black can, for example, later move bishop d5. Right? This is one idea. It can move forward, right? It's not blocked. But also black creates the threat to capture at a2, right? You can see if pawn is moving forward, pieces are becoming more and more active. Okay, so I played the d4 move. Okay, a3, rook a d8. I just realized that there is no reason for that rook to be on the a file, so I just moved it to the d8. to support any moves with my d pawn. Rook c1, rook e8. I'm just bringing, you see, because that pawn is kind of weak because it cannot move forward because my pawn is here. So I just want to move it here, and I just want to make some pressure over pawn at the e2. Okay. Rook e1, bishop d5. Okay, you can see that I'm just trying to activate my my pieces in general. Okay, knight h4, exchange, exchange. Okay, and now knight goes to e5. Now the idea, I'm just trying to activate my knight. Also, it's not so easy for him to move knight to f3, because after knight f3, I think that I can just capture pawn takes, and you can see that I have got still the isolated pawn, but you can see that white has got double pawns in that position. And you can see that basically those 4 pawns are equal to those 3 pawns. So I call in this kind of positions, I say usually that black is up half a pawn, right? Because it's not the whole pawn, just half a pawn. Okay, so white played queen f4, trying to exchange. Queen goes to e6. Okay, knight f3. He wants to exchange. A remaining minor piece. And take a look. If I take, queen takes. Later, he's going to play probably rook d1, rook d2, double rooks, and it's not going to be easy to defend the d4 pawn because only major pieces left. So I don't want to exchange it, not at the moment. Queen goes to d5. You can see that queen pins the knight, right? And there is also a threat that I will move it like g4, g5, g5, g4, and you see, put the pressure on the pinned piece. Okay. h4, d3. Okay. You see, this is my pawn is moving forward in that position, right? So d3. Rook cd1, knight captures f3. Okay. Queen captures f3, d2. You can see that nothing can stop my pawn from moving forward. And now actually I'm just winning because he has to move the rook. I mean, I'm just winning. I can get the pawn, and the rook goes to e2, and you can see that white is in trouble because white is down a pawn, and we can go into the endgame when I have got such a powerful pawn here at the d2. Exchange. Rook captures d5. Okay, and now this is the rook endgame, which of course is much better for me. Okay, but the most important was the way I played after the opening with the isolated pawn. You can see, nice example how you can push it forward. Okay, rook e6. Let's go quickly through the endgame. Rook d3, king g2, rook e4. Okay, you see, and what is important thing, you cannot win the endgame without your king's support. So king goes here. b3, king g6. King goes into the center. Rook b2, rook e d4. f3, king f5. Okay. King f2, g5. I have to play g4 to create any place for my king, right? So any way that I can move my king closer to the pass pawn. Exchange, exchange. Rook c2, and of course g4. That was my idea. Capture, capture. You can see that white is trying to counterplay rook c7, but of course this is a little bit too late. Rook f3. Here king captures g3. I'm up. I mean, I have got 2 pass pawns. This is the pass pawn and this is the pass pawn. Rook b7, rook d6. Okay. Yeah, I don't want to give that pawn away, that position. Rook b8, f5, bringing another pawn. Rook f2. Okay, king e3, f4, and actually in that position. Okay, my opponent moved king e4, rook e2, and my opponent resigned because he's forced to move his king here. So I can push my pawn forward, and you can see that he cannot stop. He just cannot stop my pass pawns, right? So this is one example how you can push the isolated pawn forward. Okay, let's take a look at another game. This time this is the game played by Artur Yusupov with white against Eric Lobron. Okay, so let's take a look. d4, knight f6, okay, c4, e6, knight c3, bishop b4. So you can see that here we've got the Nimzo Indian defense, and even from that opening it can the isolated pawn can appear. Okay. E3, castling. Bishop goes to d3, d5. Okay, you can see that pawn structure is similar like in the Queen's Gambit also. Knight f3, c5. Okay, castling, pawn captures d4, and in that position very popular move is e4. Pawn captures, bishop captures, and you can see that there is the position with the isolated pawn at the d4. So now white is going to be the side who is going to make the attack, right? Okay, black plays b6. The idea of b6 is pretty obvious. Black wants to develop bishop, and that bishop from b7 is also good because it attacks square at the d5, right? So you can see that yeah, if black's strategy is to set up then let's say knight at the d5, bishop is a good supporter, right? Because bishop of course is the second best blockader. Okay, rook goes to e1. Moving rook into the semi-open file, right, is also maybe in the future, if white can play d5 somehow, that file will be open, so white will have got a very strong attack there. Okay. Bishop b7, bishop d3. Okay, bishop d3 is the move. You see that, okay, it looks that white is not going to play d5. White decide that it's not going to be that easy if bishop is at b7 and knight is here. So white is trying to use another strategy, which is attack with minor pieces. And you can see, especially to the king, you can see that that bishop is can be very dangerous on this diagonal. Especially if later, if later that might be a plan to move it back. Queen goes to d3, and you can see that both pieces are pointing to the h7, and later, for example, bishop g5, and try to remove the defender and checkmate at h7. But that would be too, of course, too easy, right? Okay. Okay, knight c6. Okay. a3, right? Give a question mark to the bishop. Bishop has to decide. Bishop e7, bishop c2. You see, Yusupov is trying to use to make this plan, right? Trying to make a pressure over that h7. Rook e8, of course, consistent move. Queen goes to the d3. Okay, g6. Okay, probably black was a little bit afraid. I mean, black can play h6, but take a look. The problem is that now maybe bishop g5 doesn't work, but if white can remove that knight in any other way, queen h7 might be very dangerous, right? And here actually maybe something like knight e4 might be a good idea for white, trying to remove that knight. Also, bishop is pointing to the h6, so black has to be careful because some sacrifices may come here. Okay, so this is why g6. Of course, if you see this kind of hook in that position, white usually try to attack it, right? So h4, trying to play h5 and open it. Okay. Queen d6, of course h5 doesn't work because there is knight here. It doesn't work immediately. Bishop g5. Rook d8, you can see that pawn at the d4 is hanging. So of course white has to remember about the attack, but cannot forget about the defense. So rook d1. But that rook defends that pawn, and maybe in the future it can support that pawn to push it forward. Queen goes to b8, bishop b3. Okay, take a look. Now white realized that black played g6 and castle is not as strong as before. So maybe it's a time to switch to another plan and try to support d5 move. Especially to take a look how many times how many times white attacks d5. Hello Jack, thank you for the subscription, thank you for supporting channel. And take a look how many times. If white plays d5, it's gonna be defended 1, 2, 3, 4 times, and also maybe indirectly by a bishop, right? Because bishop can remove the defender. So it's attacked, let's say, 5 times. And how many times is it defended? Is it defended 1, 2, 3 times only, right? So yeah, so guess what is going to happen in the next move? Okay, a6, and now white played d5. Okay, you can see d5. Push that pawn forward, right? Okay. Knight go to a5. The question is, what happens if black captures here? Okay, black can capture pawn at the d5. Of course, with a rook doesn't make any sense because white has got minor pieces here. What is going to happen if black captures, let's say, with a pawn? I think that if black captures that with a pawn, okay, there is small tactics that white can use. I'm just really curious, can you see that? And it looks that the tactics is rook captures e7. When white played rook e1, I told you that that rook is going to be very powerful on the e file after d5, because e file is open. So rook captures e7, he captures, and bishop captures f6, and white has got 2 minor pieces for the rook, and of course you can see weak squares, pins, and very strong pressure with all pieces. So basically this is win for white, especially at the grandmaster's level. So black cannot capture with a pawn. The question is, what happens if knight captures? Of course, bishop e7 is not that good because knight captures, but I think that white can remove the knight first. And take a look. If that bishop at g5 is very well defended, it's defended by a knight and by a pawn, actually. Pawn takes here. Okay, so what white can do at the moment, white can even play here. You can see that this is a very good, I mean, white has got very good attack, right? Especially if bishop takes, white can take it here. You can see strong pressure on the king. So this is the reason why black decided to play knight a5, right? And black is attacking d5 pawn with a bishop, but also bishop at the b3 is under attack. And now white played absolutely fantastic move. Take a look. Can you find out what white can do in that position? I will give you 10 seconds. Okay, double sacrifice. White played pawn captures e6. Take a look. First thing is that bishop is hanging and queen is hanging. But take a look what happens if rook takes d3. He can take here, and you can see that those things are hanging. Also, this thing is here, bishop is here, and rook at d3 is hanging. So actually that position is completely lost for black. For example, after okay, I don't know, if king goes here, I can even capture with a check. Bishop takes, rook takes e8, and you can see that this is it's over, right? Hello, DJ Mad Dog. So this is the reason why black cannot take the queen. So he took at b3. Of course, if black captures here, there is bishop e6. White is up a pawn and king is wide open, so it's not a very good idea. Okay, knight b3, e captures f7 still, king captures f7, and queen c4. Take a look. We've got a small thing called double attack in that position. So king goes to g7, and take a look. White can of course capture the knight at the b3, and then just white has got a good position, white is up on the pawn. But what is important? Important is creating more threats, right? Especially when you're on the streak, right? So knight e5 with that threat. Okay, knight goes to, not so easy to stop it with black. Actually, I do not see what black can do right now. He played knight g8. Okay, so rook captured, queen captures g8, and of course queen f7. You can see that that game is coming to an end. King goes here, and in that position, pretty nice move. Capture the knight, and also it creates the threat for the to make this royal 4, right? Okay. Queen d4, and now rook goes to the e3 square. Okay. Okay, black played rook f8, but after bishop e7, black resigned, probably because after knight captures here, white can give a check, king has to move somewhere, I don't know, let's say here, and rook captures here at e7, and you can see that the game is completely weak. So here we have got an example of the game played by Yusupov when white switched from one plan, from the attack with minor pieces, into another plan, pushing the isolated pawn forward. So this is this kind of example. Okay, now let's take a look at the next game. Next game, you can see real titans of the of the chess. Kasparov with white against Karpov, and this is the game from the I think it was played in 1985. It was the match for, I mean, it was championship, right? Okay, for the world championship match, right? Okay, so d4, knight f6, and you just need to know that Karpov was excellent in playing against the isolated pawn. So Kasparov made a really good job in this game. Okay, c4, e6. Okay, knight c3, bishop b4. You can see again we've got a Nimzo Indian here. Knight c3, knight f3, sorry, castling. Bishop g5, c5. Okay, e3, pawn captures, d4, pawn captures, h6, bishop h4, d5. You can see again very similar pawn structure to the pawn structure from the previous game. Okay, rook goes to the c1, d captures c4, bishop captures c4, and you can see that there is the isolated pawn at the d4. Knight c6, castling. Okay, now you can see that there is a big problem, that knight is pinned. At the moment, by the way, you can see that white, okay, if white would like to play d5, it is attacked by 1, 2, 3 times, right? It is attacked 3 times, and defended also 1, 2, 3 times, but that knight is, you cannot count it because it's pinned, right? So white can play something like d5. Bishop e7, okay, but you see, sometimes when the pawn moves forward, it leads into exchanges, right? And in some positions, maybe it's better to wait a little bit with that idea. I mean, pushing pawn is not good in every moment, right? You just need to wait for the right moment, for the right time to doing that. Rook e1, again, the same idea. You can see that those two rooks, that grandmasters are moving rooks to the e and c file. Okay, b6. Of course, the same idea with black, trying to develop bishop to b7. a3. You see, a3 idea, I remember that for a long time I couldn't understand why a3. What's the idea? Because white is going to attack in the center and on the king side. So what is the reason that white plays a3? And the reason is, okay, actually there are two reasons. First reason, less important, is that there is also a place for the bishop, right? Bishop can go to a2, and knight cannot go to a5, so because knight from a5 attacks those two things. And you know that that bishop is very important in the attack. Second reason is that it stops any knight b4 move. Because if black can go knight b4 and then knight d5, you can see that black probably can keep the knight into the in front of the isolated pawn. Bishop b7, bishop g3. Okay, you see, bishop g3 is the move because after d5, knight captures d5, and you can see that bishop h4 at h4 is a problem at the moment. So this is the reason why he's moving back bishop to g3. That bishop is also doing pretty well at this diagonal, but now after d5, it's not a problem. That diagonal is not a problem anymore. Okay. Rook c8. You can see undefended piece. If you see undefended piece, you know the tactics might happen. So bishop retreats. Okay, bishop goes to d6. Karpov is thinking, okay, I will try to exchange some minor pieces. Okay, that would be the best if I can exchange all minor pieces, but it's not gonna be that easy. Maybe it's not that bad for me, especially that my pieces are pretty well developed. Okay, and now opening is over. I will give you another 10 seconds. Think what Kasparov can do, what white can do in that position. Any ideas? Okay, I'm not sure. Do you know? But white can of course play the d5 move in that position, right? d5 move, because take a look. White's pieces are going to be open at the moment. d5. Take a look what happened. Knight d5. Knight captures d5. Bishop captured g3. In between move. Pawn captures. E captures d5. Bishop captures d5. At the first glance, it looks that position is just simplified. It's not that much for white here. But if you look deeper, those pieces are white's pieces are so active. Here one rook, here another rook. Take a look at this bishop. It's so powerful. Later, white can also try to move even queen to b3, pointing again together with the bishop on this diagonal. There are that many possibilities for white that yeah, okay. What Karpov played? Queen f6, queen a4. Okay. Moving queen, right? You can see that there are some threats to capture and capture at a7. Maybe, right? If he wants to take the pawn. Of course, black cannot take pawn at b7 because something is hanging at the c6. Okay, so rook d8. Rook c goes to d1. He's bringing the rook into the center. Okay, rook d7, and now Kasparov immediately is changing the position of the queen. Queen goes to g4. You can see that queen is now focusing more on the king. Okay, rook goes to d8, which rook d8 wasn't the best idea, because now, using the whole activity of white's pieces, white can do fantastic idea. Okay, another 10 seconds, because this is also a great idea. Maybe you will figure it out. And you can see the next move that Kasparov did. Queen captures d7. Unexpected attack, right? Rook takes. Of course, he has to take it with the rook. Right, and now take a look. Check. Okay, the only square that king can go is h7. So king goes to h7 and bishop e4. You can see that bishop attacks king, discovered attack, and white is going to take 2 rooks for the queen, and actually in that position Karpov resigned. Of course, he could play something like g6, right? But then rook captures d7. Okay, you can see 2 rooks in general are better than the queen, but in that position, 2 such active rooks are much better, right? If, okay, bishop is hanging, if bishop goes to a6, white can just capture here, queen captures c6, rook captures f7, checkmate, right? So it was really beautiful sacrifice, I mean Kasparov's sacrifice, right? And he completely destroy Karpov in this game using active pieces, right? And you just need to know that it wasn't a random game. It was a game for the world champion title, right? So pretty important game, I would say. Okay, so now we saw a couple examples of the games how to play with the isolated pawn. I will just remind you, push pass pawn forward, or second idea, create attack with minor pieces, or in general with another pieces. So now let's talk about some positions that how to fight against the isolated pawn. And the first game that we are going to attack is that we are going to watch is Ulf Andersson game. Okay, knight f6, c4, c5. Okay, g3. You can see that we've got an English opening. d5. Okay, pawn takes, knight takes, bishop g2, knight c6. d4, knight f6, queen a4. Okay, bishop goes to d7, pawn takes e5. Yeah, this is just, I don't want to talk about openings here. This is just kind of one of the lines in the English opening. Capture bishop c5. I know that at the first glance it looks like this is not going to be isolated pawn, but you will see what is going to happen. So, okay, white develops, knight c3, h6. Okay, knight d2, castling. Okay, knight from d goes to e4. Knight takes, queen takes. Okay, bishop e6. Okay, white is going to develop, of course. Rook goes into the open file. You can see open file here, right? Okay, queen f6. Okay, you can see that there is a threat to that square. Okay, bishop e3, bishop goes to d4. Okay, and now, okay, I think that at least some of you know what is going to happen. Bishop captures d4. It's not such a good idea to capture with a knight because pawn at b7 is hanging, right, with a queen. So black captured with a pawn at the d4, and you can see finally we have got the isolated pawn at the d4 square, right? You can see isolated pawn here. So now the question is, what white's supposed to do right now? Remember, when you fight against the isolated pawn, exchange minor pieces and also try to block it. Knight d5 is offering an exchange. Black can capture that with a bishop. I mean, queen is also hanging. So actually, black decided to capture. Portiusz, of course, knew that it's not the perfect situation, right? But he was afraid. He was very afraid of that knight. So captured, queen captures, rook goes to e8. Rook is attacking. Rook attacks pawn at e2. Okay, at the moment. So rook d2. You see, pawn is at the moment is blocked, cannot move forward. There are not that many minor pieces left. I mean, okay, that knight is there. So now white is, of course, that rook defends pawn at e2 and maybe also pawn at the b2 square. But also the idea is to move not rook c1 but rook d1 and make a pressure over that pawn. And I think that white was planning to put a lot of pressure over that pawn with major pieces, and then with bishop remove the defender, right? Of course, in the right moment. Okay, rook e7, rook d1, okay. Rook e8. You can see that now two rooks are pointing to the pawn at the e2. So white has to do something. Very common move in this kind of positions is bishop f3, because bishop can defend that pawn, right? Rook cannot take it. However, Anderson decided to play queen c4. Okay. That queen also defends it here. Knight a5, queen d3. You can see now pawn is also blocked. It wasn't a good idea for white to capture that pawn, because you don't want to trade weak isolated pawn. Pawn that cannot move forward is weak, right? Isolated pawn that cannot move forward is kind of weak for the e2 pawn, because after queen d4, probably it's gonna exchange, rook captures, and rook captures e2, and that rook, moreover, that rook is very powerful here on the second track. So queen went to d3, okay, queen goes to b6, and now take a look. Of course, you see that still it's not possible to capture. So Anderson decided to maybe I'm just thinking, there was the idea to go here, bishop f3, defend it, and now pawn is hanging. But I think that knight c6 is coming, something like that. However, Anderson decided to move rook to the open file. Pawn is blocked, so now white starts to maneuvering with pieces. Okay, knight c6. Of course, bishop c6 doesn't work, because even if you remove the defender, you cannot take pawn at the d4, because still pawn at the e2 is hanging. Okay, a3. You see, prophylactic move takes control over the b4 square, so you can see pawn defense here. Also, there is the idea later, there is no need maybe to sacrifice that bishop, If white can move that pawn somehow here and then play bishop f3, that pawn, I mean, white can take this pawn. This is just the idea, but okay. Rook e5, b4. Rook e6, rook c4. Take a look. Rook from the c4 square also attacks that pawn, right? So you see that it's not like a it's a long process when you fight against the isolated pawn. You have to make sure that pawn is blocked. Then you have to bring all pieces into the attack and wait for the right moment how to capture that, right? Remember that haste makes waste, right? So there is no rush. G6 and now king f1. Take a look. King is going to take a look. It's not a common thing to use king in the middle game, right? But he's trying to, I mean, Anderson is trying to use king in the defense and is defending the pawn, right? Okay. Queen a6, and now it's a time to start some action, to take some action. Bishop captures c6. Okay. Rook takes c6, rook takes d4, right? You can see Anderson was okay. It took like I'm just calculating. The whole plan lasts 14 moves, right? From move number 16 to move number 29. Okay, 13 moves, right? To capture that pawn. So it wasn't like walk in the park, right? It was a long process, and he was waiting for the right moment when can he capture that. And of course, this position, we will watch this, what happened here, but this is like a, yeah, okay, queen c6, queen f3, white is just up a pawn, and now it's just, white just need to win that, right? Rook d3, okay, rook captures d3. E captures d3, of course, if rook captures here, there is rook e2, because queen is pinned, so white has to be careful. Pawn captures d3. Rook e1, okay, with a very unexpected threat to go rook g1, okay, queen captures c6, pawn takes, and now we've got a rook endgame. By the way, black has got two isolated pawns, white has got one isolated pawn, so you can see that this is pretty common. Okay, so a4 here in that position. Rook goes to b1, king goes to f3. Okay, two most important things in every endgame is an active king and creating pass pawn, right? So far, white is trying to activate the king. King f8, rook goes to c4. Okay. King e8, and now it's a time to capture, right? Rook captures c6. Okay, rook b4, rook a6. Now black has got very passive rook because black is forced to move it there, and white is trying to bring more pawns and king into the action. Okay, pawn goes here. You can see that rook is very passive. There is no way that he can move it away because it has to defend pawn at a7. King also cannot go here because rook is watching, right? Okay, rook b4. He's trying to, of course, the idea is if rook takes, there is this move, and he would like to go into, he would love to capture that pawn and move rook behind the pawn, because you know that this is the best position for the rook, behind the pawn. But there is no need to give anything to the opponent, so h3, h5, capture, and now he decided to capture at a7. Okay. Rook h4, after king g3, there is rook d4 move, so pawn at the d3 is hanging. Okay, but there is a5. Okay. Rook h3 and king e4. And you can see that is true that black has got a pass pawn here, but you can see that white's pass pawn is first of all more advanced. Second thing, white is up a pawn, and third thing, take a look, white's king is more active than the black's king. Okay. Rook h1, a6. Okay. Rook a1, king f5. King is going to take care of the pawn. h4, king goes to the g4 square. Okay, rook a4, f4. Okay, what black can do? Black can just wait in this position, right? After king d8, this is what happened, d4. Because, I mean, he could capture at f7, right? White could capture here. Black captures, white captures, but then black can play here and capture this pawn. So there is no need, there is no rush in that position, right? So yeah, so white plays d4. If rook captures d4, there is of course rook captures f7 and then a7, and black cannot stop white with such a powerful pawn at a7. King e8, king captures h4, and black resigned in that position. So you can see in this game Anderson showed how to play against the isolated pawn, and it's a very long process, right? You have to stop any black's plans, so you have to block the pawn and exchange pieces, especially minor pieces. And let's take a look at the next. Let's take a look at the next thing, the next game played by Karpov. Okay. Okay, the next game is played by Karpov. I told you that Karpov was one of the biggest experts in the history of chess, how to fight against the isolated pawn. Unfortunately, he lost against Kasparov. Kasparov was he is a big expert in the attack, right? So he lost if there was a battle of the attack and the defense, and now we are going to see what the Korchnoi against Karpov's game. Okay, c4, e6. Knight c3, d5, d4, bishop e7. So you can see that we've got a queen's gambit at the moment. Knight f3, knight f6, bishop g5, h4, bishop g5, h6, bishop h4, castling. Okay. Rook c1, and in that position black decided to capture the c4. So it started with like a queen's gambit declined, but now you can see that position is gonna be very similar to the queen's gambit accepted. Actually, this is a transposition into that. Okay, e3, c5, a very common move. Bishop captures c4, pawn takes d4. You can see that there is the isolated pawn at the d5. Okay. Knight c6, castling. And now in that position, I know that a lot of people would like to play b6, right? But after b6, something like d5 may happen, right? Or in the worst case, I mean in the other case, captured f6 and d5. So Karpov is trying to simplify position, trying to exchange pieces, trying to remove dark square bishops. Okay, and of course white is forced to exchange because after bishop g3 there is knight captures g3. So this is a very, very, very good idea. Okay, capture, and now bishop b3. That is true that white can, in that position, white had got a chance to play d5, and then some exchanges in that position. Exchange, queen or bishop. Okay, let's say queen captures, capture, and in that position, actually, its position is kind of around being unequal. But Korchnoi is hoping that he can create some attack with that isolated pawn or with minor pieces, right? So this is the reason why he decided to just move back. Okay, knight f6, you see, that would be perfect if black can set up knight at the square. Knight e5, bishop d7. You can see that d5 doesn't work at the moment. Queen e2, rook goes to c8. Okay, and now knight e4. And knight e4, you should know that this is a mistake, because white's supposed to create some attack with those pieces, not exchange them. And of course, Karpov's answer is easy to predict. Knight captures e4. Queen captures e4, and bishop goes to c6. Take a look. Now another piece is pointing to the d5, is blocking to the d5 square, is blocking the pawn from moving forward. You can see that. Take a look. Knight captures c6, rook captures c6. Take a look in that position. You can see that now only one pair of minor pieces left at the moment. Okay, rook c6, rook goes to c3. After rook c6, I think that Karpov would like to take it with a pawn, and then it's much easier for black to attack this pawn, like with rook, or queen can go also here. Knight goes here, and white cannot keep pawn at the d4. Okay, but Korchnoi played here, queen d6. Okay, the idea, of course, is to bring the rook, right? Because at the moment, pawn, you can say that pawn at the d5 is blocked. So, so in this position, black is trying to bring more pieces to put some pressure over that. Okay, g3, rook d8, of course, rook d1, and now take a look. How black can try to increase the pressure over that that pawn at the d4. Hello, ZB. What is the idea? I will give you 10 seconds. How can you attack it even more? I will just tell you that queen d7 and rook d6 would be nice, but it's not possible because after queen d7 there is bishop a4 pin. Now f5 is not a good idea. Take a look, rook b6, and take a look. The idea is the same here and then here. Okay, queen e1, queen d7. Really nice way how to change, how to set up this, how to increase the pressure over that pawn. Rook d3, rook d6, and now take a look. 3 big cannons are attacking pawn at the d4. Okay. Queen e4, queen goes to c6. Of course, black is trying to exchange. If queen takes, of course, knight probably takes, and that pawn is dead, right? Because after d5, there is even this move. Not possible to defend that pawn. Okay, queen f4, knight goes to d5. You see again, it's a lot of maneuvers in that position. Queen d2, queen b6. Slowly trying to attack it. And in this position, Korchnoi decided to exchange that powerful knight at the d5. But as I told you before, I think I told you that at the beginning, that that major pieces endgame, or major pieces, okay, maybe you can call that this is, you can say that this is still middle game, is not such a good idea for the side who has got the isolated pawn. Because we will see what is the plan, how to get this pawn. Here queen c6, queen c3, queen d7. Take a look. How white is going to defend it. There is a big threat of playing e5 and just capturing that pawn. So last move to survive for white is to play f4. But the big problem with the f4 is that it opens king. And in the positions with major pieces only, king's safety is probably one of the most important things. Okay, b3. It keeps the pawn safe, okay? Rook b4, and now b5. Take a look. Rook defends that pawn, and that rook is very limited in that position. Okay, white plays a4, and now pawn even captures a4, right? This is first pawn for black, right? Because queen defends that pawn. Queen a3, okay, a5, okay, rook captures a4, and actually queen b5 is coming. So you see, white to defend this pawn, white weakened king's position, so black is trying to enter with major pieces and just trying to checkmate them. Rook d2, and now fantastic move, e5. Yeah, because that king is weak, so black is trying to open that position, right? Of course, white has to take it, and rook takes. You can see that here we've got a pin. If white captures at the e5, you can see that the rook is going to capture here, and white is just losing, right? Because in the next moves, black is just going to checkmate them, even simple ideas like here and here. Okay, queen a1, and now another fantastic move. Okay, I see that there is a question. Yeah, because white has to defend that pawn at the d4, so white cannot remove that rook from that square. This is the reason why rook was there, right? Because in the other case, black will just take the free pawn. Okay, queen e8. Take a look. Powerful threat, rook e1. Capture, rook captures d2. And as I told you, with such a powerful rook, it's not possible to survive. Queen c6. Very weak king. It's the game is over. Okay, he checked. King h7. Okay, he can give couple checks, but to be honest, okay, here and queen f1. right? But that king is that weak that, of course, there is a kind of trap that if he captures here, he can capture at f7, but this is just a, and we've got a perpetual check, right, in that position. Kind of a perpetual check, so moving here and back, right? So of course, Karpov is not going to fall into the trap. Check. Queen goes to the d5, and in that position, white actually resigned, because after this move, you can see queen d4. You can see this kind of, I think it is called stairs, right? If I'm not wrong. Queen is going there, and after king h1, rook goes to f2, and white just cannot defend because there is one threat and this is another threat. It depends. If white keeps queen on the first rank, black is going to play queen e4. If queen moves somewhere else, queen e4, and black wins. So this is an example how to fight against the isolated pawn. So to sum it up, this lesson about the isolated pawn, just want to remind you that if you play with the isolated pawn, the best option is to try to push it forward and create attack with the minor pieces. But if you fight against the isolated pawn, exchange minor pieces and try to block it. Try to blockade it. The knight is the best blockator. So if I can answer the question that is in the title, is it an isolated pawn, is it a strength or is it a weakness? I would say that it depends, right? Okay, I studied economics, so you could expect such an answer, but it depends on the position. It depends what can you do with your pieces and what can you do with that pawn. Okay, hope you enjoyed and hope you learned something about the isolated pawn. I'm just going to post the link into the YouTube. I'm just going to upload that on my YouTube. You can also watch my other webinars. Okay, this was the second one. First one was about pawn endgames actually, and in the near future I'm just going to make even more things like that. Okay, so thank you very much for watching. Have a nice day and hope to see you next time. Bye.